A great coach is going to be as great as the implementation that his players are willing to take and execute. It's funny. So Simon was talking about our relationship and, having gone through the grind together, living on road trips, staying in bad hotels, hotels we would never dream of staying in now years later. But there was something really special at that time that we understood that the sacrifices that we were making at that time, those were all part of our story. That was going to be part of the future of what we were trying to build, to be able to say, hey, we earned this. Simon was the first person that I ever saw in the field as an agent. My first day ever riding out in the field was with Simon. And, there was no better person they could send me with, because not only was he, dynamic and a tremendous salesperson and excellent in the homes, after experiencing about 30 minutes of his driving, I was a big believer in life insurance at that point in time. I don't need to talk about being coachable to a room of people that invested their own money, their own time, airfare, hotel, to come up here to get better in the business. So I think all of you deserve a round of applause for the time that you took to be here. So I'm already preaching to the choir in many cases, as you guys are here because you want to pour into yourself. You're here because you want to be better in the business. You're here because you want to serve your people better. The real question is, how do we get other people to be the same way? And the reality is that when we talk about being coachable and executing, the funny thing about it is that there's nothing that will relieve more stress for you as a player. And I was taught years ago that there are times when you're a player and there are times when you're a coach. And you've got to know when you're a player and when you're a coach. And it's funny because life comes full circle sometimes. The first 18 months that I was at SGA, we had just unbelievable growth. Everything was perfect. The last 12 months have been pretty tough. Some areas in the business where me as a leader, I've not experienced these things, so I'm not equipped to handle some of the challenges. But it's raising up my level of play. Marcus can be tough to play for sometimes. He's tough, he's demanding. He expects the very best from you, no excuses. And so sometimes, it can be tough because you don't want to let your coach down. You hate to be in that type of a situation. So many times whenever Marcus would want to talk to me, I'm like, oh man, what'd I do this time? What did we do wrong? What do we got to improve on? I know that everything is going to be okay when you know when to be a player and you're not being a coach. When you're open to the coaching, when you have a level of humility as a person and a level of self-awareness, it is, they say the truth shall set you free. So Albert Gray, many years ago in 1940, gave a speech called The Common Denominator of Success. He says that the secret to being successful is that successful people are willing to do the things unsuccessful people are not willing to do. As he said, well, people will say, well, I have a family and I've got to make a living for my family. Isn't that enough of a reason for me to, do the things that I don't like to do? And he says, no. He says, it's easier to adjust yourself to the hardships of poor living than it is to adjust yourself to the hardships to make a better life. And he said, if you don't believe me, just think about all the things you're willing to go without, just so you don't have to do all the things you don't like to do. And that is a convicting statement. I think at some level to every single person, especially once you've had a little bit of success. See, you're here because you've had some success. So when you have some success, that success, whether financially or because of position, can buy you a level of comfort that you may not be willing to give up, even if you're coached to have to give up that level of comfort. How many of you are fans of football? How many of you are familiar with the NFL? So in the NFL, there are 30 coaches, 30 head coaches in the NFL. 29 of the 30 head coaches in the NFL come from the Bill Parcells coaching tree. The only one that didn't is Andy Reid. Now, what does that tell you about how important it is to be coachable? A great coach is going to be as great as the implementation that his players are willing to take and execute. So alignment so critical that what I have learned is that over the years, when I've experimented a little bit with maybe trying to do something my way or trying to do something just a little bit different, not executing it exactly the way that I was supposed to, I never got the results. Well, in the Bible it says that a prophet is not without honor except for in his own home. And so when you're in your own home, sometimes things are taken for granted. Sometimes when your parents tell you things as you're growing up, you don't always 100% listen, but you may listen to a peer or a mentor or somebody else's parents that tell you the exact same thing. There is something about the multiplication of the message being the same message that is very powerful in creating culture, driving behavior, and creating the habits that need to be created for people to be successful. So when it comes to execution, here's what I've learned in my life, and you tell me if this is not true, okay? What I've learned in my life is most things that I go into take a little bit more than what I would anticipate. If any of you have ever gotten in really good shape, okay? Ever gotten in really, where you were like, damn, yeah, I look pretty sexy. Okay, I feel really good about myself. If you've ever gotten in really good shape, would you agree that actually it took a little bit more maybe than what you thought, a little more discipline with the food, the diet, the sleep, the exercises, the workouts? So pretty much everything in life that is really rewarding, all of those things always tend to take a little bit more than you would anticipate because you really don't know what the expectation is going into it, right? Always execute at a level that's 20% higher than the way that you're being coached. So always shoot to put in the work to get a result that's 20% higher than what the expectation is. Okay, so if you make a decision, hey, we're all gonna recruit 10 hours a week, we're gonna rock these phones. 10 hours a week, we're gonna recruit. Well, then just make a decision for yourself that you're gonna put in 12 hours. Always put in 20% more. Give yourself a leeway. So we talk about execution. There is nothing that motivates a coach more than watching a player excel by executing the game plan. The coach's level of coaching has a lot to do with the player's level of execution. So when we see these great teams in sports, the players change, the coach doesn't, right? The players change, they continue to win. So the players, by their level of execution, actually motivates the coach to coach at a higher level. When the coach coaches at a higher level, guess how the players feel? Inspired. So they execute at a higher level. Now you got this. It's called momentum, guys. There is nothing more amazing than to come to the realization that all of the work that you're doing today is going to pay off for years and years and years and years. And you may not think you're getting paid for the work you're doing right now. I promise you something. Cash money millionaires are going to be made out of this room because of the leadership that's being provided.